In ground warfare, the mobile forces are at the heart of the fighting machine. What they do best is what they've always done: project power over distance and reach out faster than infantry. In today's war zones, the American Abrams M1A2 tank is king. It's one of the largest, most complex ground war machines ever to fight. Crushing firepower and formidable armor put it at the pinnacle of the evolution of tank technology.
There are three primary factors that influence tank design. They are: how big is the gun, how well protected are they, and how mobile are they?
The design of each involves decisions and choices. The decision to give the Abrams a big gun and thick armor makes it a heavier, less maneuverable tank. These trade-offs, so familiar to tank designers today, were already influencing the first war chariot engineers thousands of years ago. 1457 BC, Megiddo in the Middle East. Two great armies clash in one of history's earliest recorded chariot battles. Egypt's mobile forces under Pharaoh Thutmose III shatter their Canaanite opponents. With speed and daring, they capture nearly 1,000 enemy chariots and score a dramatic victory. The Egyptian chariot is a battle-winning machine in the ancient world. It isn't the first chariot, but in many respects, it's the most successful, combining simple but effective principles. The horse to provide propulsion, the six-spoked wheel, strength and speed, and the bow, firepower. 1,000 years earlier, a predecessor to the Egyptian chariot was this cumbersome battle wagon with 4 solid disc wheels. The Egyptians wanted a different kind of fighting machine, a fast, maneuverable platform from which to fire arrows accurately at enemy infantry. This wish led their chariot builders down a particular design path.
The Egyptian chariot was a fighting vehicle. And as in all fighting vehicles, you want to make them ride smoothly so you have accuracy when firing your missiles. One of the ways the Egyptians achieved a smooth riding firing platform was through the design and construction of the wheels. These included eventually 6 spokes, rims wrapped in shrunken hide, which formed a tire, as well the fighting deck that the warrior and the driver stood on had a springy feel that absorbed a lot of the shock.
Other secrets of their success can be discovered at an unlikely place: a trotting track in Pennsylvania. These racing carts, known as sulkies, are built for speed and mobility by technical designers. Sulky technology is highly competitive. Every detail is constructed to gain an edge on the racetrack. So the sulky is light, under 27 kilograms. And sulkies use frame tubes which are elliptically shaped, like an aeroplane wing, to minimize drag. Lightness is essential for mobility, and at around 35 kilograms, Egyptian chariots are almost as light as the modern sulky. But this comes at a price. The chariot is unarmored, so its fighting crew of 2 men, driver and archer, are completely unprotected, relying only on their speed and firepower.
That's not because they didn't want to protect the individual inside. It's because they felt they didn't need to. Because any chariot was supposed to fight away from the army. They were supposed to be able to pour archery fire on somewhere from a distance.
So platform mobility for the crew is a matter of life and death. Egypt's designers rise to the challenge and pioneer a highly effective design. They set the axle at the very rear of the platform, maximizing its ability to change direction in battle.
These chariots had to be able to turn on a dime, stop on a dime, where other chariots are turning, spinning, and wheeling.
But rapid changes of direction increase the risk of a chariot flipping. Egypt's engineers foresee this danger and give the chariot a wheelbase that's 1 3/4 meters wide, allowing it to make sudden turns without tipping over. Ancient technology has created a highly maneuverable firing platform, perfectly designed to fight at a bowshot's distance from enemy infantry. As chariot tactics evolve, elsewhere commanders begin to use the machine in different ways. As a result, the chariot itself grows large again. This titanic machine rolls across the Middle East in the 7th century BC. With 4 heavily armed and armored warriors, Assyria's chariot trades mobility for combat power, effective against light infantry.
It was meant to ride directly into the infantry force, to make the driver, to make the riders all part of a military unit to attack.
But in the end, the chariot has too many limitations as a weapon. It can't be deployed on rough ground or in swamps, and it's expensive to build and maintain. By the time of the Roman Empire, the chariot is used only for racing and ceremonies, because armies have discovered a more flexible weapon.
What kills off the chariot is the horse. Now that seems very strange, but horseback riding will eventually mean that the chariot is no longer needed on the battlefield.
So the lightweight draft animal that pulled the chariot is bred larger to carry a mounted warrior. And in 4th century China, a new invention is recorded that will revolutionize the impact of the warrior and his more powerful horse. The stirrup is the device which turns the rider and his mount into a more secure fighting unit. And later, in medieval Europe, armies will use this fact to change battle tactics and transform heavy cavalry into a weapons platform of immense power. 1429, Patay in north-central France. A crucial battle in the vicious 100 Years' War between the English and the French. At Patay, the English infantry are unprepared for an attack. 1,500 heavily armed horsemen of the French cavalry vanguard sweep through their defensive lines and put the infantry to flight. The power of this heavy cavalry assault condemns the English army to total defeat.
This is the age of the knight. The man who rides on his horse, who is armored, who carries a lance, and uses cavalry tactics, he is virtually invincible.
For centuries, the iron stirrup had provided the horse warrior with the critical advantage of balance and leverage in battle. A simple contest demonstrates the difference it makes. 2 horsemen, one equipped with stirrups and one without, fight a duel with clubs. The fighter dressed in green can use his stirrups for leverage to strike his opponent much harder. The horseman in brown can't compete and is easily pulled from his horse. When the iron-forged metal stirrup is combined with a saddle and bridle, it helps create a new kind of warrior. The medieval heavy cavalry is a complete weapons system which rules the European battlefield for 500 years. Tactically, these horse warriors are used as a battering ram. It's believed they attack in a line which sweeps the enemy aside by the sheer force of the charge. The elite of the heavy cavalry are knights, whose status and position is superior to that of the regular soldier. Knights need to buy their armor and horses. In effect, they become the mercenaries of kings and dukes in return for gifts of land. They fight their nobles' wars at home and abroad. The knights create a military culture like the Spartans or the Japanese samurai. And by the middle of the 12th century, knighthood has spread throughout Western Europe. The joust, where knight tilts against knight, is sport in medieval society. But the arena is also the place to practice the tactics for war. The stirrup allows the knight to adopt new fighting techniques.
He could carry bigger equipment. The lance suddenly went from a stick to almost a tree that he could carry, and this was knocking people out of the way.
Next, armor. By the 16th century, every warrior who can afford it is encased in plate armor. And it's his stable platform which allows him to strap on this extra protection. His horse, too, is armored, but metal plate is heavy. There has to be a trade-off. So man and horse sacrifice some mobility in favor of protection. The collective momentum of these horsemen, enabled by the stirrup, changes the tactics of medieval warfare.
A rider can now put the lance under his arm and carry the impetus of the horse and the rider into a blow into an opponent.
Designed for its optimum quality as an armored offensive weapon, this cavalry is the heavy fighting vehicle of the Middle Ages.
The man on his horse, a knight, is absolutely frightening. He was a mobile tank.
A tank for his time. But it will be centuries before man and horse will be truly transformed into mobile machine. (1914), World War I, Northwestern Europe. Two armies face each other immobile across a line of trenches over 800 kilometers long. Out of this massive defensive stalemate will emerge a revolutionary new weapon which will change warfare forever. With both sides locked head-to-head in trench warfare, the Allies are desperate for a solution to the deadlock.
The question is, what kind of machine will enable you to break that trench stalemate?
Enter Winston Churchill, Britain's First Lord of the Admiralty and lover of new technology. Churchill is fascinated by a new innovation that combines speed with protection: armored cars.
Fast motor cars, and it was getting loads of publicity, all things Churchill lived for. So he backed the production of bigger and better armored cars.
The new vehicles defeated German cavalry in the early months of the war when fighting was more mobile, but they struggle in the mud and shell craters of the Western Front. What's needed is a visionary new design.
Trench stalemate brings about one of those light bulb moments in history.
This is the light bulb, a piece of American farm equipment, the tractor, that uses tracks instead of wheels to plow the fields. And so it happened. The British set about building the world's first tank, Little Willie. The first prototype is a primitive metal box riding on imported American tracks. It's the technology of the track that could potentially change the course of the war. But early tests are disappointing. Little Willie's nose sticks out in front of the tracks, so if the tank falls into a trench, it can't climb out. The design proves a dead end. And so Big Willie is created with a revolutionary new system. Its tracks were at the very front of the tank, high enough to grip any obstacle it encounters and climb over it.
The secret of this design is the way the tracks wrap all the way around the body of the tank. The reason for this is that the tanks are expected to cross wide trenches, 9 feet wide in some places, and rough ground.
Big Willie's power to crush defenses is put to the test. It soon becomes clear this juggernaut could be the key to breaching the German trenches. In September 1916, Britain's revolutionary new war machine is unleashed on an unsuspecting enemy.
You've got to imagine a type of machine that nobody had ever seen before. And I don't just mean the Germans, I mean most of the British soldiers on the Somme had never seen anything like this. And they start moving in the pre-dawn mist when you can hardly see your hand in front of your face. It appears to slither along the ground. It's quite bizarre the way it moves.
So far as the Germans were concerned, they called these machines the devil, and the cry soon went up along the trenches, "The devil is coming."
Nothing you shoot at them will stop them, and in your mind, it's you they're coming for.
But once the Germans get over their initial shock, they soon realize the machines are vulnerable. And for the men inside the tanks, the experience is hellish.
Well, I'm in, and there's nowhere to put my hands because I'm between the transmission and the engine, and all that's hot, and I'm already feeling claustrophobic. This is the engine, a mass of red-hot moving parts. You can imagine the heat that that generates, and every crew member is only 2 or 3 feet away from it. The only way to communicate was with one of these. Of course, the crew can't really see what is going on, and they can't really derive the comfort from looking at each other because all they see is an outline in the dark. Their face is covered by one of these chainmail masks, which is some protection against the metal splinters that flake off the side of the tank as soon as it's struck by explosive.
The most difficult thing you have to worry about is plunging artillery fire, because artillery fire can kill a World War I tank. It's only moving 3 miles an hour. It's a big target.
It was only when they started to open up derelict tanks and discovered only the feet and legs of burnt crew members remaining because the upper part of the torso had completely been incinerated by the furnace, did it dawn on these people that they were part of a new type of warfare that nobody had ever experienced before.
These slow-moving metal monsters are some of the least mobile firing platforms ever invented. On the Somme, many of the tanks get stuck in shell craters or are destroyed by artillery. Only a third even reach the German lines. The tank was designed for a single tactical goal: to break through German defenses, leading columns of Allied soldiers forward. But on the Western Front, it fails to be the hoped-for war-winning weapon. There are numerous mechanical problems. Military planners also fail to see its revolutionary potential. But its time will come. 20 years later, in World War II, the tank will establish itself as a key weapon of war. 1940, Northwestern Europe. In just 10 days, Hitler's panzer tank divisions slice through the Low Countries and France to the English Channel. It's a triumph for the tank. In 2 decades, Germany has turned the tables on the Allies and become the tank superpower of Europe. Ironically, one of Germany's sources of inspiration is a British officer.
Major J.F.C. Fuller, the British Army, is a visionary when it comes to the use of the tank.
Fuller rejects the original World War I concept of tanks leading infantry into battle. In his writings, he foresees a force comprised entirely of tanks attacking in numbers. Fuller's vision is radical, and the enemy is paying attention.
Fuller, ironically, can't sell the idea in Britain. He can't sell the idea in America, but the Germans are reading him.
One German in particular, General Heinz Guderian, the father of German tank warfare. He develops Fuller's idea of an armored division attacking at speed, which will decide battles all on its own. The panzers are unleashed in the attacks on Belgium and France in 1940. The early panzer tanks emphasize speed over armor or firepower. The Germans create a new concept in mobility, where tanks advance at speed with motorized infantry and artillery. Vehicles are on tracks, and each armored unit is linked to the next.
There's one thing that you might not think about, but it's absolutely essential. It's the ability of one tank to communicate with another, so it's the radio.
In 1940, most Allied tanks have radios which can only receive signals. But Heinz Guderian's tanks are all equipped with two-way radios, so commanders can coordinate their forces across a battlefield. Throughout 1940, the German panzers outmaneuver and outfight heavier Allied armor in most tank battles. Then, on the Eastern Front in June 1941, the tables are turned. Out of nowhere, German tank crews suddenly find themselves beaten by a surprising adversary. The chain of events which brings this about begins in the 1920s and on the other side of the Atlantic. American inventor J. Walter Christie is a former racing driver obsessed with speed. His dream is to produce a fast, futuristic tank which can pierce enemy lines and soar over trenches. Christie's tanks are capable of over 100 kilometers per hour, a speed undreamt of by the early tanks, whose track system was far more rigid than Christie's. If they'd moved any faster, they would have injured the crew. Christie invents a truly innovative suspension system.
The secret of it, ever so simple, large diameter wheels, like these, and each wheel on a separate swinging arm pressing against a big spring.
This allows the track to move up and down in response to the terrain and absorb the shocks. Although Christie is an American, his own government rejects his designs in peacetime. So the mercurial Christie seeks other buyers and sells his suspension to the Russians, who use his invention to create the legendary T-34. It is this tank that the Germans come up against on the Eastern Front in 1941. A young Leningrad engineer, Mikhail Koshkin, was put in charge of the T-34 project in the Ukraine. Koshkin's inspired idea was to design a tank that was basic but totally reliable, a workhorse of the battlefield. Confident of its ruggedness, he drives a prototype some 700 kilometers to Moscow for Red Army chiefs to inspect. The T-34 wins their approval, but Koshkin's design made no concessions to crew comfort, and his punishing midwinter journey proves costly.
Koshkin drove this tank throughout the winter. The conditions were so bad and the distance so great that he developed pneumonia and subsequently died.
Koshkin's death doesn't halt the impact of his tank. On the Eastern Front, the pace and firepower of the T-34 takes the Germans by surprise. But something else makes the T-34 special. The design of its protective armor makes it almost invulnerable.
For the first time, it incorporated sloping armor so that incoming fire can ricochet off the armor.
Sloping armor is a groundbreaking concept. The reason the shell ricochets off is that the effective thickness of the armor gets greater as the slope of the armor increases. The earlier tanks were designed more like a box on tracks, with the result that an enemy shell stood more chance of penetrating the armor. But sloping armor gives the tank superior defense. It works like this. When an incoming tank shell meets a perpendicular armor surface, it pierces it and probably kills the crew. If the armor plate is angled at 30 degrees, the shell might bury itself in the armor, but doesn't go through it. But if a shell strikes armor plate angled at 60 degrees, it bounces off, leaving the tank and crew unharmed.
The T-34 is probably the finest example of the use of sloped armor. Here at the front, this very sharp nose. And they achieved this because everything that makes the tank go, and that's the engine, the gearbox, the steering mechanism, it's all at the back.
Sloped armor is now a permanent feature of the modern tank. The nose of the Abrams M1A2 tank is almost horizontal when viewed from the front, presenting a minimal target. Compare this to a World War II British Cromwell tank. The frontal armor is more vertical. But America's current battle tank doesn't rely exclusively on defensive capability. It can also outgun the enemy with its 120mm weapon and thermal sight. In Operation Desert Storm, it was able to engage Iraqi tanks beyond their effective combat range.
We like fighting from far. We can hit from far. No questions asked. They won't know they got hit till they got hit and they're on fire.
The Abrams can also fire with great accuracy at speed. To achieve this, the weapon has to be stable. A design point as true for the tank and its gun as it was for the Egyptian chariot and its archer. The technology needed for the tank's weapon was perfected late in the 20th century. Gun stabilization uses gyroscopes to lock the weapon onto the target, regardless of the movement of the tank's body.
Any type of terrain you can fire on. Doesn't matter how the tank is sitting. The hull can be sitting a certain way, the bottom part of the tank can be sitting a certain way, but the gun is still gonna be leveled out, ready to shoot.
The Abrams uses superior range to outgun opposing tanks. It's a deadly tactic. One which the Germans used in World War II in response to the dominance of Russia's T-34. The Germans designed a rival tank, equipped with a long, highly accurate gun, the Tiger. Its bloody impact on the battlefield was experienced by this former British tank officer. This is the actual Tiger gun which almost killed Peter Gudgeon in the Battle for Tunis in 1943. 5 other soldiers in his troop were killed before the Tiger joined the onslaught.
First we knew about it was when the leading tank on my right blew up in a massive explosion. The commander and his wireless operator were blown out of the top of the turret. The tank was ablaze, an inferno. The next thing I felt was a shot passing right down my tank, just missing my right leg. I felt the draft of it on my right leg. And it crashed through into the engine and set us on fire.
Gudgeon only survived the Tiger's attack by pure chance. A lucky shot from another British tank struck the Tiger in the turret. disabling it. The German crew bailed out and fled.
Hit it anywhere else than where it did, probably wouldn't have made any difference. One amazingly lucky hit.
Soon, the sophisticated firepower of the Tiger and Russia's T-34 will meet head-on in one of the biggest tank battles of all time. The outcome of that showdown will point the way to who will be the ultimate victors in World War II's Battle of the Tanks. (1943), Kursk in Western Russia. One of history's most ferocious tank encounters begins at the village of Prokhorovka, near Kursk. Around 450 German and 800 Russian tanks mass on the brow of a hill.
You are face to face in this incredible encounter. It's almost like hand-to-hand combat with tanks.
Ahead would have been hundreds of German tanks. And every single crewman must have felt they were lining up on him personally.
You don't have time to think. You fire, you shoot, you ram.
The feeling of vulnerability is completely accentuated by this lack of vision. All I can see is the next slope ahead and very little else. They must have felt dreadfully vulnerable.
The losses are phenomenal. You have to imagine men bailing out of tanks that are on fire, and when you bail out, you're going to get shot.
Casualties on both sides are huge.
It's a holocaust on the tank battlefield, because the next day there are these hundreds of burning hulks.
The precise figures are disputed, but it's thought over 500 tanks are destroyed that day. Just one engagement in what becomes the biggest tank battle in history. After 7 weeks' fierce fighting, the German offensive is halted. The price for the Russians is a heavy one. But though the Russians lose more tanks, in the long run, Kursk proves more damaging to the Germans because of their different approach to engineering.
But if there's one thing that characterizes all these Russian tanks, it's the crude finish, and it's very noticeable here on the T-34's turret. You can see cast markings, weld markings. Now, if you compare the rough finish of this tank with the German Panther over there, the contrast is fantastic. It's as if those tanks were finished off in the Mercedes-Benz body shop. It's a beautifully made machine.
The Panther, with its impressive 75mm gun, is Germany's newest tank on the battlefield of Kursk. Beautiful it may be, but Germany is unable to produce the Panther on an industrial scale. Only around 6,000 of the precision-made Panthers are finished. But Russia's simple, reliable tank technology, built to designer Mikhail Koshkin's blueprint, allows them to mass-produce 40,000 T-34s. The Germans will be pushed back by sheer numbers. For Germany's designers now, the need for fast tanks to conquer new countries has gone. Their revised goal is to defend the fatherland from attack, and so greater protection becomes their priority. The Germans deploy the King Tiger. With almost double the frontal armor of its junior partner, this is the heaviest tank used in World War II. But the thickness of its armor cannot protect the German nation from the Allied invasion forces as they close their grip. In World War II, the tank became a powerful force. Commanders learned to use it as a hard-hitting weapon, whose new mobility transformed the possibilities of warfare. The tank's gun grew in size and killing capacity, And in response, armor got thicker. By the close of the war, the tank had traded Christie's vision of an armored racing vehicle for an all-round fighting machine. And the symbol of that success was the T-34. But in the decades that follow World War II, tank designs built for set-piece battles find themselves facing a different kind of enemy, a different kind of tank killer. Which prompts some to ask if the main battle tank might disappear, like the chariot, into history. (1973), a surprise attack by Arab states on Israel ignites the Yom Kippur War. Israel's tank forces, which seemed invincible, suffered devastating losses. For 40 years, the most potent force against a tank has been another tank. But this time, Egypt's soldiers deploy an unexpected, deadly weapon.
There was an introduction of something that changed the equation on the battlefield, and that was this light, portable, anti-tank weapon.
Israel's tanks are destroyed by soldiers equipped with missiles that can be carried in a suitcase, and by rocket-propelled grenades. Anti-tank explosives have been around since World War II as one way to penetrate improving armor. But this is a major escalation, a portable, guided delivery system with a deadly warhead. Known as a shaped charge, the warhead is designed to cut like a knife through the thickest tank armor.
This is a shaped charge. The top part here is filled with explosive. This is designed so that when the explosion travels down here, this copper actually turns to liquid and is concentrated on a point down here. And that allows the liquid metal to actually puncture straight through the target.
It will completely carve up the crew, or it will set off ammunition fires, which in turn, of course, will produce internal explosions, which will completely finish them.
But the punch of the rocket-delivered shaped charge will soon be opposed by a counterpunch. Weapons designers search for a type of armor which can resist it. 1969, one German armor scientist, Manfred Held, stumbles across an amazing discovery while he's conducting research in the Middle East. He's using the wrecks of damaged tanks to test his shaped charge warheads.
I was alone there. I was a project leader. I made my own pictures from every test.
He detonates his shaped charges on the tank turrets, fully expecting them to perforate the armor and pass right through the turret. But this doesn't happen. And when Held reviews his film footage, he notices a much bigger explosion than he expected. On investigation, he discovers the shaped charges have detonated unspent cartridges inside the turret. Held comes to realize these cartridges have neutralized the effect of the shaped charges.
So the stronger reaction have reduced the penetration capability.
Held has discovered a totally new way to armor a tank: explosive reactive armor. On the Israeli Blazer tank, around 40 steel plates containing explosive are fitted at the most vulnerable points: the front arc and the turret. If the tank is hit, a plate will detonate, neutralizing the shaped charge and leaving the tank unharmed. We can see how it works by comparing the effects of a shaped charge on a tank with and without the protection of explosive reactive armor. Two towers of steel represent the armor of the tanks. A shaped charge is placed on top of each tower. There will be 2 explosions, one with and one without protection. A sheet of plastic explosive is placed between the shaped charge and one of the steel towers at an angle to simulate the position of a plate of explosive reactive armor on a tank.
When the shaped charge is fired, it will detonate the sheet of plastic explosive and hopefully disrupt the blast. Then we can compare the number of steel plates penetrated with the protection of explosive reactive armor and without. Firing in 3, 2, 1, firing! Firing! There was a huge release of energy in both those 2 explosions. This first stack, we didn't have anything between the shaped charge and the top plate.
The shaped charge has left a neat entry hole, and the blast has penetrated almost 6 plates. That's 15 centimeters of steel.
It's actually gone almost all the way through it. If we compare that to the stack that was protected by our simulated explosive reactive armor, the entry on the top plate is a lot messier. A lot of this seems to have been disrupted.
But the shaped charge has only gone fully through 3 plates, so the explosive reactive armor has reduced the impact by almost half.
So had this been an attack on a tank, I think the protection offered by the explosive reactive armor could well have saved the crew's lives.
This technology is now used by most countries that build tanks. Israel's army was the first to adopt the new armor, and that was just the beginning for their crew safety program. Since their experience in the Yom Kippur War, the Israelis have prioritized tank crew protection. Because for them, tank design has political and economic dimensions. The Merkava tank was designed after the deaths of 2,500 Israelis, mostly tank soldiers, in the 1973 war. For Israel, with a small population, the loss of a highly skilled tank crew outweighs the loss of the tank itself. Soldiers are precious, and retraining costs high. So with the Merkava, firepower and mobility come second and third. Unlike all other main battle tanks, the Merkava's engine is in front, which puts an extra barrier between the crew and incoming fire. The tank's shape, streamlined and flat, makes it difficult to hit. Even the turret is designed to present less of a target.
The turret is basically on the top. It's very narrow, so it will be very, very hard to hit. As you can see, it's shaped as an arrow to the front.
If the tank is hit, soldiers have a greater chance of survival because ammunition and flammable liquids are kept separate from the crew area. And they can make a rapid exit through a rear-facing escape hatch.
What happens, I give my crew just a command. They all get out of their cells and just come out of the tank from this rear hatch. We can open it from inside. It just opens on the top and on the bottom. The whole crew gets out and we go to a safer spot.
The Merkava represents the pinnacle of crew safety for a battlefield that's become more lethal for the tank. Because of that vulnerability, weapons designers now pursue a strategy of designing different weapons platforms for contrasting types of warfare. The main battle tank remains a dominant force. The American Abrams tank played a crucial role in ground war offensive during both Gulf Wars. The Abrams M1A2 is the essence of a modern heavy tank, the end result of a century of tank evolution. Its massive 120mm gun has a laser range finder. And it's tough, protected by multiple layers of steel and ceramics with an option of reactive armor.
Abrams tank is the most powerful battle tank in the world right now. There is no tank that can match an Abrams in open battle.
There are inevitably consequences for being one of the largest tanks ever to fight. At 63 tons, the Abrams' weight is colossal, which means it drinks fuel at over 4 liters per kilometer. But despite these logistical problems, the prospect of conducting head-to-head battles between armies without tanks is unthinkable.
If you're projecting the possibility of a war with, say, an enemy like North Korea, that will be a conventional war. And you'll need an Abrams. You've got to have an Abrams.
Current conflicts, though, are more frequently asymmetric and fought against insurgencies, an invisible enemy. And the theater of war is often urban, where a tank's size and immobility makes it a target.
Definitely the place that is the most dangerous for using a tank would be an urban environment. The most restrictions, the most opportunity to get behind you or over you to attack you.
Because of the tank's limitations, weapons designers have produced alternative machines. The Striker, used in Iraq since 2003, is an armored personnel carrier with wheels instead of tracks. It's used as a battlefield taxi, delivering troops with speed and mobility. Its firepower and protection are inferior to the Abrams, and in Iraq, it was shown to be vulnerable to roadside bombs. But the trade-off is it weighs less than a third of the battle tank, so it can be flown easily to trouble spots. And in urban wars, it's far more mobile.
A Striker can go down streets that an Abrams tank is too large to get through, because the tank is so big and so powerful.
The Striker is at the end of a long tradition of lighter weapons platforms which have evolved in response to the demands of the battlefield. From the iconic Jeep, transport backbone of the US Army in World War II, to today's Humvee, a hybrid of troop carrier, ambulance, and automatic weapons platform. Equipped with a roof-mounted M2 50 caliber machine gun, its role has expanded into urban combat. Strikers and Humvees can use their superior mobility to escape the enemy's guns. But because those guns are becoming more potent, the most effective way to avoid being hit is to avoid being detected in the first place.
New rule of warfare is, if you can see it, you can hit it. If you can hit it, you can kill it. Doesn't matter what it is. So that makes the importance of not being seen much greater than it ever has been in the past.
And so designers of future weapons technology are investigating a new dimension: invisibility. New weapons technologies, from camouflage through to stealth, are now being researched and tested. These Leopard 2 tanks from the armored battalion of the Danish army are on their way to Helmand province in Afghanistan. But before they leave, they're given a new skin to disguise their presence from the enemy. Anti-tank weapons use thermal targeting to home in on a tank's telltale heat signature and kill it. This camouflage helps disguise that signature. The camouflage combines layers of high-tech materials which reflect and conceal the heat and radar signals. Only one of these Leopard tanks is using camouflage. A thermal camera highlights their different heat signatures. The color white is hot. The first tank has no camouflage and its tracks and hull are clearly hotter.
Most of the tank will not be visible on a thermal imager, so you will be able to get up and get the first shot before they even recognize you.
Tank disguise still has many challenges to overcome, but it may hold off the day when the tank is replaced as the bringer of mobile firepower to the battlefield. A battlefield which is always changing and where the tank must always adapt to survive. Since the Pharaohs, the wheels of war have turned beneath the most destructive fighting machines the world has ever seen. And thanks to technology's dynamic advance, the mobile forces have evolved to strike out at high speed across great distances. Over thousands of years, these machines have helped drive the changing tactics of battle as commanders have responded to their achievements. The future of ground warfare will continue to be shaped by that awesome combination of speed, armor, and firepower.